Hello, welcome everybody to our training here for Boss Up or Bust. We are getting back to the basics here with my wonderful friend, Caitlyn Flowers. Caitlyn, say hey.
Hey.
All right, so I will be doing kind of interview style with you guys. We're talking about, Caitlyn Flowers, of course. We are talking about Caitlyn and what she does to really grow her business on a local level, and all of the things that she's done from where she first started to a big revamp to these crazy results that she sees now. So Caitlyn, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself for us? Tell us a little bit about you, and then we'll talk some business.
So I am Caitlyn. One of my Scentsy BFFs here, Vanessa, was so kind. She reached out and asked me to do this training, and she agreed to help me do this interview style because she's the queen of all the questions and making sure that you stay on track. So that is why she's here today. She's awesome. But anyway, so I'm Caitlyn. I'm from Lubbock, Texas. So if you are not familiar with Texas, but you know the shape of Texas, I'm like up in the square part of it. So, been a consultant since 2010. I joined completely on a whim because I got my very first order from a family member. She was the consultant that I bought from. And she was not really, she was like one of those like married in cousins that was like always starting family drama. And so I got my order and I was like, well, shoot, I really love this stuff, but I don't want to have to contact her every time I want it. So I didn't know anyone else, literally could not find anyone else in my area. Just joined completely on a whim, really had no intention of like building it as a business. And so for quite a few years, I mean, I just said 2010, so you can do the math. For quite a few years, I literally just, I mean, I ordered for myself. I had a handful of friends and family. I mean, I talked about it, so it was very much so like a hobby, but definitely not a business. And so I had my oldest daughter in 2016. At the time, I had worked in retail management for my whole life. I started whenever I was 15 years old working for a local retailer, worked my way up through management. So that's what I was doing. So after I had my oldest daughter, I mean, I realized that the retail world was probably not what I wanted to stay in. I loved the customers, and there were certain aspects that I loved, but the scheduling and everything like that, it was just not something that I knew I wanted to do long term. So anyways, had my youngest daughter in 2019, and that was really whenever I was like, okay, gotta figure something else out, gotta revamp this. I literally have a legitimate business in front of me. I just haven't been treating it as a legitimate business. So that was kind of whenever I did like my big revamp.
So your big driving factor to decide like, okay, I have this thing that I don't really take seriously. So it was after you had your daughter, and was it just like I don't want to go back to work kind of thing, or like what?
It was really not an I don't want to go back to work. Like I've always enjoyed working. Like I love having a purpose in that sense and having something for me, and being career minded. I've been that way my whole life. But it was more just so the scheduling. And it was just my oldest, she was fixing to start public school, and my youngest, it was just one of those things like, every time she was sick, I should also mention in there, my fiance is a firefighter. So he's gone at least 3 days a week, if not more. So I do the solo mom mode for those 3 days. And so I realized quickly that, it was just so hard with lessons and needing to be picked up from school. And if they're running a fever, they call you to come get them. And so it was just one of those things that I just felt like my career was not conducive to
Right,
that
was
kind
it flexible enough?
not flexible at all. And I just, if I left early, I felt like I was having to do work from home, or I'd have to go up on the weekends, and then holidays, never in my life did I ever get to do like any kind of vacation or anything. And so anyway, so I left that job in August of 2020. And so it was actually crazy. So for my birthday this last year, my birthday's in December. So I'm middle of the month, December baby. Any December babies out there know that your birthday goes, here's December, and people go, whoop, they just kind of skip over that as their reason to Christmas. And so I literally got to take like a legitimate vacation in the middle of December for the first time in my whole life. And I was like, man, this is the freedom. Like, this is what I wanted.
And especially in retail, like December is the craziest month ever. They laugh at you if you ask to take time off in December. Yeah. Like, yeah. I know that. So, okay. So tell me, so you started to revamp what month in 2019, roughly? Do you remember?
I would say it was probably like February of 2019.
Okay. So we're talking February 2019 to August 2020. That was that. So you started to revamp, and then that August of 2020, you left that job.
Yes.
So just over a year, which is wild. That's so amazing. And so
kind of had like a situation happen that was kind of like a deciding factor for me, and like, okay, done with this. Goodbye. Good
And
luck.
I think that leap of faith is really
And
important.
so it was really honestly one of those moments where had I not been faced with that, I don't know when I would have actually quit, because I think that it's just, whenever you're doing Scentsy, like it's all about you. Like you have to be the one with the
Yes.
self-discipline to get up and to work. And I'd love to stay in my PJs and in bed all day long, but someone has to get up and do the work. And it's just me,
Yeah.
like it's hard. That's the hardest part for sure.
Right. Well, that leap of faith, though, and that's what it is. You have to, you're never going to be full. It's like kids, you're never going to be fully ready to have kids. You're never going to be fully prepared or have enough money set aside, or
Yeah.
nothing's ever perfect. So you just have to kind of take the opportunity when it arises. So that is just absolutely huge. So let's talk about what that business looked like for you when you decided to revamp. Like, where were you at in your business? Kind of tell me about like numbers, customer size, maybe team size and title.
Okay, so I mentioned I started in 2010. Was it 2010? I think it was. I think I actually hit director sometime in 2011. By the end of 2011, I had hit director. So obviously I was, recruiting a little bit. My team at the time, I want to say it was probably only about 30 people in size. And then probably by 2012, I lost my director title. I was back down to superstar consultant, and I was a superstar consultant from 2012 to 2019. So
Wow. Which
there was
is good.
a long time in there. You see and you hear about people like starting Scentsy and they're a superstar director in a few years, and I always laugh and say I'm on the 20-year plan. But it's just one of those things that goes to show that like you never know when someone's like when that switch is going to flip for someone, and like when something is going to change for them. So at that time I was only getting paid at superstar consultant, hadn't been paid at director in many many years. And really that was just clearly no one's fault but my own. I just wasn't doing the business building things to be paid as director.
Sure.
And then, around that time, I want to say my team size was probably roughly like 60-ish, but still not hitting those director numbers.
Right.
And my PRV at the time, I was actually looking back, a big month for me was probably around 1,000.
Okay.
Super big month for me was like the $2,000 months. Obviously the $2,000 month is awesome because you get the bonus. But that was few and far between for me, mostly in the holiday months. There was plenty of months like where I only sold like 500 to 800. So
And I think that's huge because a lot of people, right before I revamped, that's about where I was at too. And I think a lot of people that are going to be watching this training are going to relate to that. They're probably in the space where, maybe they're selling around 500 to 800 a month. 1,000's a good month. 2,000 happens maybe once or twice a year, and it's a huge deal, but they're not finding that consistency. So if that's any of you watching this, this is your time to tune in, because just keep in mind, that's where Caitlyn was in 2019. I myself was also in that exact space in 2019. So that's super crazy. Just to think of like, I just want that for kind of a baseline. So that is where you were, right before this revamp started. We know why you started to revamp. Now tell me, what are some of those things that you did right at that beginning of the revamp that just kind of started to snowball into this big success?
So I had been kind of watching consultants. This was before the Whiff box was a catalog item. And so I'd kind of been watching consultants create their own monthly boxes. And I was like, man, like that looks extremely fun. Like that looks like something that I would enjoy doing. And I'd really just kind of been watching that for a few months. And so finally, I remember in February 2019, I was like, hey, I'm going to do this. And for texting, I utilize direct texting. I think that that's a huge, huge key, especially when you're getting ready to revamp your business. Because for me, I'd been a consultant a long time, but I wasn't super, super consistent with it. Like I was always going to be there to place your order and stuff if you messaged me, but I wasn't super consistent. And so I think sometimes, if you've been a consultant a long time, or maybe you've done other direct sales, maybe you haven't ever talked about Scentsy a whole lot, you've got to really prove to people that like, this is what I'm doing and this is what I'm serious about. I tell you how many times I meet new customers and their number one thing is like, well, I haven't been able to use my Scentsy in years because my girl stopped selling. Now I don't have bulbs. And I'm like, man, and then they're like, well, I sure hope you're going to be around whenever I need a refill. And I'm like, oh, I am. But anyway,
huge.
February, I messaged a whole bunch of customers, probably like 40 to 50 customers, contacts, friends, few family members, and was like, hey, like I'm going to be doing these boxes. And so I call mine scent fixes. And so I think my very first month, I had to have messaged at least 40 or 50 people. And I think I had 12 that agreed to do it. So I was like, okay, great. And some of them might have just felt bad for me. Okay, I got them. So now I just got to get them hooked. So it was kind of, that was one of the things that I started doing, was those scent fixes every single month. And that's something else. Like that's one of those things that like, if you're going to do it, you have to decide to do it and then be consistent with it.
Right.
You know, how many times I've seen people start them, but then they have a crazy month in like life, and then they back out.
That's
and
me.
then they decide to like try to get back into it, and then it's harder.
Yes.
And so I remember like the month, like that year in 2019, later that year, I mean, I was pregnant at the time I started these. So I had my baby, like, and I remember like, I did not want to put one together that month, but I still like, you know, pulled myself together, told my customers they were going to be a few days late, and was like, I promise they're coming. And I feel like that people really respect that. And then they really see how serious you are about your business. And then they can really see the people that it benefits, you know, like by getting your family involved and all that. And so that was something girls would help me put those boxes together. I really talked to people. And like I said, I did that one-on-one communication a lot for probably at least 6 months. I did not talk about them on social media. I really didn't use Facebook. Facebook is like the only social media I have, so I'll throw that out there. So if some of you were like, I'm not very good at social media, like neither am I. So Facebook is the only one that I used. And at the time, I had not really been using it for any kind of like businessy self-promotion. So I did not use it to talk about my scent fixes at the time. I literally just texted people anytime I met a new customer. I would say, hey, I do these things every month, you know, these boxes that I feel like you might be interested in. I'll send you some information. And so I would kind of, you know, preface them with that. And then that way I could follow up the next day with some pictures of past ones that I'd done. And that was really how I built that in the beginning. And that was kind of a launching point for me, I feel like, in growing my local base, just, you know, really honing in on letting those customers know that like I'm serious. This is something I'm doing every month, you know, because they saw me every month. I had a box ready, and most of them were local people. So they'd come pick up from my house. So I would see them, I would have quick conversations with them, and things like that.
So let me ask, you started off by just one-on-one communication. So obviously you've been a consultant for a minute, right? And even if you've only been a consultant for maybe a year or two, it's still relevant because you have some customers at least. Let's talk about your customers before you started getting into these scent fixes. Were they predominantly local?
Yeah, I mean, even I would say probably at least 95% of my customers are local. To be honest, I was born and raised in the town I was lived in. I never even went to college. Like, so I never even like left where I live, you know? So, I just don't have contacts outside of the town that I live in. I've never moved. I've always lived here. And so honestly, the only non-local customers that I have are customers who used to be local and they've
moved.
I just follow them like a shadow. And, or just the occasional person who like will refer me to a friend.
Right. And we'll get to that for sure. So you started off with predominantly locals, and you had messaged about 40 to 50 people, and you had 12 people that got in on those like first few rounds of scent fixes. We're just give me a number, rough estimate, and we'll touch on this later, but I just want to give people an idea. Roughly how many scent fixes did you have, let's say like last month or this month?
Right at 150.
So we went from 12 on your first round to 150 scent fixes. And you charge how much for them? Like what?
I charge $19.99.
Okay.
So
we're saying
not local.
So we're saying about $20. Let's say $20 times 150. So $12 times 12. You sold 240 in scent fixes that first time. We then moved it up to $3,000 in scent fixes to where you're at now, from 2019 to 2023, which is wild. So in case you guys are wondering why I'm interviewing Caitlyn, this is why, and we're going to get into that nitty gritty. So let's get back to some of the local discussions. What made you decide to focus and like hone in on locals? Was it just because you already knew some of your locals? What was your kind of thought process on that?
Yeah, that was really it. During like my earlier years, whenever I really just did it like as a hobby, I did have a few people do some basket parties for me here and there. I did a handful of home parties way back in the day. But But to be honest, I mean, I really focused on my local market because that's all I had. And I'm not personally one of those who, like, I know some people are like super successful with like plugging into like groups that have interest of theirs, or they're, all of their social media is set to public and they find all kinds of people who reach out to them like that. And I'm just not one of those people. Like, every single friend on my friends list is someone I personally know and I personally met. Like, I'm just not the girl that accepts the random friend request if I've never met you. Like, I just, I'm just very much so, I'm not necessarily a private person. I'm a pretty open book if you ask me questions. But it's just not authentically me to like go out there and, meet the random people of the world. Although that's a great way to network, it's just not authentic to me. And so really, I stuck to local because that's all I knew. That's all I had.
Right.
And I was the most authentic, and I feel like I'm better in person. So if I can meet you in person, I feel like I can suck you in and keep you forever.
Right. I get that. And you got to stick to what's authentic to you. That's why we sell Scentsy. That's one of Scentsy's core values is simplicity, authenticity, and generosity. So if that's authentic to you, roll with it. Now, advice would you give to someone who doesn't already have a local customer base? Maybe what are some things that you've done just to kind of like expand yourself and your business into your local areas?
Honestly, just building natural connections. Things like my daughter's in first grade now. So, she, and I didn't have any connections at the school that she's attending. She's going to a different school than I grew up going to. So, I mean, I would have known some contacts at that school, but we went a whole different route. We went to a different school. So I didn't know anyone there. But, you can bet your butt that every time back to school, teacher appreciation, Valentine's, end of school, all of those little gifty holidays, we're gifting Scentsy to the office ladies, the principal, the assistant principal, all of her teachers, so she's in first grade. And so I have 3 teachers that, are now extremely good customers. I have the office ladies that are customers, the principals that are customers, another example is like, we just did a round of swimming lessons a few months back. We did 2 weeks of swimming lessons. I literally sat right next to the same mom at every single lesson. We sat right next to each other every day. And we just built a natural relationship. And I remember it wasn't until the very end of the second week that she's like, "What do you do?" And I was like, "Oh, I sell Scentsy." She's like, "Oh, I love Scentsy." So it was just, but we'd been sitting there talking for 2 weeks. She had no idea what I did. Sure. And so those are just like very natural, very organic things that, and even if you're super new to the area you're at or whatever, I would be willing to bet that almost everyone has, a neighbor, a nail person, a hair person, a doctor's office that you visit, and get plugged into those places like where you can truly build friendships. I always tell people, I have hundreds and hundreds of customers at this point, and I can probably easily count on one hand the amount of those people that I knew pre-Scentsy. One, sometimes 2 relatives that buy from me. My family's extremely small.
Same. We have like no family support. And that's normal though, is for your customer base to not be people ahead of time. So if you are someone who's like, my people don't support me, just know that if you want to be successful in business, you have to get outside of your circle. There's no other way to do it. You have to get outside of it.
I have learned over and over that a stranger will be a bigger cheerleader, a bigger supporter, and all those things. And another thing too that I could really recommend is to shop local when you can and get to know those people, and then refer those people, like I have a lot of customers that own local businesses, from flooring companies to florists. And, and I find that those women or men that own their own businesses too, they really refer me and they really recommend me without any kind of incentive, because that's just kind of how business ownership works. True people that are really in business like that, they want to see other people win. That's the best thing about Scentsy, and finding those people that are in your corner. They're probably not going to be people that you knew before starting Scentsy.
Preach it, sister. Preach it, sister. Okay. So let's talk about what you do. We'll talk about kind of like what you did when you first started, and also what you do now to expand within the local network. So we've kind of talked about like a few things, but let's talk about like really what did you do like when you first started to really expand that local network? So you had the people that you already were selling to, those first 40 to 50 people you texted. How did you expand that number? How did you meet more local people to sell to outside of school, because we already talked about how you gift things, which gifting is huge. Gift things to, you didn't just do the teacher, you did the office ladies and the principal, maybe other teachers. I know that you've mentioned before in a conversation with me that you bring up Sonic, like the drinks, and she'll just get
ways Scentsy networking is a lot of friendship building, and so I'll take up drink patties of Sonic drinks to all of the office ladies, at the school, and I want them to know my kid especially, but I want them to know me too. So
right. So let's talk like outside of kids. So let's say when you first started, outside of Bray's being in school, let's talk about Bracely's your oldest, right? Or is Bristol the oldest? Bristol. Okay. So let's talk about outside of Bristol, like what were some things you did to expand that network?
Okay, so just different ways. So I mentioned like basket parties, bag parties, catalog parties. That is a super, even if you're not a mama, but you just have a busy lifestyle, I think that those are incredible ways to find new customers and, build and harvest relationships with those people who could potentially be consultants later on too. Right. So I will say that, I got some contacts from that. Something as simple as just talking to your customers and letting them know, again, this is kind of reiterating that consistency thing, but, telling your customers like, yeah, I'm really trying to get, I would really love to quit my full-time job within the next 3 years, and, just organically telling people those kind of conversations where they're always thinking about you and they're, kind of silently rooting you on, whether that's sending you a referral or, offering to do a party for you every, a bag party or whatever, however you like to party, every time that there's a new catalog. Getting plugged into like local Facebook groups. We have some like recommendation groups in the town that I live in where you can go and ask, hey, I need a plumber. I need, an electrician.
Hair lady. Yeah.
Hair lady. Okay. So we have a couple of those. We have one that's women owned businesses only and one that's just for any local business. So if you don't have one of those in your area, it would be an extremely easy thing to put together even, the rules are very simple. I think you can promote your business one day a week. And other than that, it's very cut and dry. Like people post what they're looking for and then you refer local businesses. The only rule is just that you can't refer a Target or a Walmart or, that type of thing. Don't tell people like, well, you might look on Amazon, that's not what it's about. Right. So things like that have been a great opportunity. I have done just a little bit of Facebook Marketplace. I haven't really dived into that a whole lot because there's some compliance rules there with it that I'm not fully 100% comfortable with. And so I just haven't dived into that a whole lot.
Do you mind if I take that for a second?
Yeah.
Okay. I do that. I do a lot of that. So originally I was planning on doing this training. I was like, oh, cool, I'll take this one. And then I was like, wait a second, duh, Vanessa, there's someone who is like the queen of local business. And that's why I wanted to interview Caitlyn. So you guys are going to find, I'm going to interject a little bit just because there are some things that, and we all work differently, but there's some different things that Caitlyn and I do locally. So I live in Lakewood, Ohio, right outside of Cleveland, the burbs, but Lakewood is kind of weird where it's like, it's kind of city, it's kind of suburban, it's real weird, but Facebook Marketplace is a huge thing around here. Like everyone's addicted to it. Everyone sells on it, whether it's like you're clearing out your closet or you're like a local business, whatever. So when it comes to Facebook Marketplace, first and foremost, you cannot sell stock. You can't sell stock anywhere other than in person, okay? Or Yumi Who. If you don't know what that is, look it up. But you cannot sell stock on Facebook Marketplace. You cannot sell stock on Facebook at all or any other selling platforms.
You have it.
What?
So, or even like allude to having it.
Yeah. Nope. None of it. Don't even. But
I guess post, even a friend, your best friend says, hey, do you have this bar in stock you're talking about? You have to say, I'll message you.
I'll message you. Yeah. Don't even say, yes, I have it. But so Facebook Marketplace, what I do is I especially use it for licensed stuff. So licensed products are an incredible way to expand your customer base because it's someone who may not have bought, just a regular warmer or our laundry products or our cleaning, but they might be obsessed with Star Wars or obsessed with Disney or whatever it is, right? So I use my Facebook Marketplace to post, especially anything licensed. And you just say, hey, we have this upcoming launch. Here's the information. Here's my link. Message me with questions or message me to order. And that's just what I do. So like we just had the Star Wars stuff relaunch again, Mandalorian. So I posted that. on Facebook Marketplace, and I just said, hey, we have like the Scentsy launch coming up. Here are the products, here are the prices, here's my link. And then I have several people that will, they'll message and ask if it's still available. It's not like you're going to get immediate results, and you're going to have a lot of people who don't actually follow through, but you're expanding your customer base, and you might get a new customer or one sale or 3 sales out of it. So it's definitely not like a woo, like you're getting immediate results, but it's getting your name out there, and it's getting our products out there, because there's so many people that don't know Scentsy. So that's how I personally use it, is I post on Marketplace, and then I have joined local groups that I know allow you to share a Marketplace post into their selling groups. So that's one thing I do. You don't do Marketplace, so I'm sorry if I totally derailed you. Do you know what?
I'm glad you interjected that, because I don't know a lot about the Marketplace world, but I know it's a good way to meet some local people.
It is.
Some other things that I've done are fundraisers, like with local schools, teams, things like that. And fundraisers are, there are so many ways to do fundraisers. You just have to really figure out what's authentic to you. But one thing I can tell you is that if you can do a fundraiser and do it the right way, they'll keep coming back to you, because it's easy. And it's, I like to do fundraisers where it's like, I'm doing all the work. Like, I'm going to make your packets. I'm going to order the products. I'm going to separate it. I'm going to bag it. I'm going to deliver you all the products totally organized in a check. I want to make it as simple as possible. And those are the kind of people that oh, can we do this again next year?
Yeah.
Those scent fixes that I've done, those were something that, my customers get them, and I would tell them, like, please, please, please refer your friends. And so I'd try to make sure that they were fun and they were something exciting to open. And I started those in 2019, so I was cruising along, and then 2020 hit, and we kind of had, a crapshoot there.
Right.
But, really, I had so many customers tell me, like, I look forward to this so much every month. This is like my box of happy. This is like the one thing that I buy for myself. You make this so much fun.
So do you, before you keep going really quick, do you ask them to post? Like, are you like, hey, like, can you post a picture of your scent fix? Like, how do you really get that out there through your customer, like referral wise?
So I kind of change it up now, because now that 150, to be honest, I don't know how many more I could handle.
Let's talk about back when you first started, though.
Yeah, I would love to do like 250, but I'm just not sure. So now I do it a little bit differently. But back then, whenever I was really trying to grow it, I would literally stick a card in every single box about my referral program. For those specifically, I did, like, if you refer a friend, you get half off on your next one half price. So it was done, I just put it like in a card in the box. So it was personal, one-on-one communication, so that was kind of a personal special that they could take advantage of. I would, like, the little snap share snap.
Right. Yeah, I have one in front of me. I had like a love brag tag kind of card.
So I did that, so I think that, I wouldn't necessarily tell them, like, post this on your Facebook, but, I would try to, like, give them little things like, sure, tell your best friend, take it to work, take it back to work with you, open it at work, and just try to give some people some ideas that they could share it. So, but I think a lot of that is done, I think a lot of those shares were done not because of the referral specifically. Like, a lot of times people will refer someone to me, and then I was like, okay, like, you're gonna get $10 off your next box. And like, oh, I am? Why? I'm like, well, because you referred someone, and they're like, oh,
so why do you think that is? Why do you think they're organically referring people without any incentivizing?
I think so I actually talked about this yesterday in a training, and so which by the time people see this video, that will have been like a month ago, but this may be if you've seen me talk before, because I just truly feel this strongly about it. I think that it's easier to sell Scentsy now than it even was a few years ago. And I think a large part of that is due to just the way that the world works these days, and people's expectations have just dwindled in customer service. And like, customer service as a whole is just a dying thing. Like, every company out there has an excuse about manufacturer delays, product delays, this issue, COVID, sickness, illness, employees, labor, blah, blah, blah. And it just has given people an out instead of just figuring out how to make it work. And so I think that whenever you can offer just genuine, authentic, good old customer service, like in the good old days, like, that's just something that's so rare, people like latch onto that. And so I always give the example of,
like, show me what that looks like. Like, tell us what that customer service looks like for you with these customers.
Like, I like to give an example of locally, we have a toy store that's been in business here for decades. I shopped there as a kid. I take my kids there. They're expensive toys. They don't sell the same kind of toys that you're going to find at Walmart or Target, but you walk in, and the owner is always there. You know, the owner or his wife are always there. And whenever I walk in, like, he recognizes my face. I don't know that he knows my name, but he recognizes my face and he remembers who I am and things like that. And I can walk in and I can ask him, you know, I need a gift for a 10-year-old girl. And he's going to say, oh, try this, or this is new, this is new. He knows every single toy that he has in that store, how it works, you know, new things that are coming from this. This is great quality. This is super cool because you can add on to this and it's a collection. You know, he truly knows the product, just like you would hopefully really know the product that you're selling.
Right.
He offers free gift wrapping. You know, how are your girls? How are things going? You know, just he's just a genuine person, you know, like I know he's a genuine person, and he just, you know, he's not looking to be the next Target. He doesn't want to be as big as Toys R Us once used to be. He just loves his business, and he talks about his grandkids every time I'm in there, you know. And so for me, whenever I walk out of that store, I will refer people to that store all the time. And he
Because
doesn't
of
have,
the experience.
yeah, experience. He, you know, he doesn't have a referral program. He's not following up with me to check in necessarily. He's not doing, you know, I don't get happy mail from him, you know, just a few things to mention that, you know, some consultants do. You know, he doesn't do those things, but I know that he's a real person, and the experience and all of that is something that keeps me going back, and I'll recommend and refer people to go there all the time. But you know, so for me, I feel like that I try to kind of like replicate that in like what I like, you know. And I think you can think about your favorite locally owned mom and pop diner or any of those little places that you go shop at. Think about why you shop there and why you keep going back.
So let's talk about those things that he did. So one, he knows his products so
Yep.
well that he can make recommendations for you. So you don't even have to think about what you're purchasing. Number two, you said gift wrapping, complimentary gift wrapping. How many people just like can't stand wrapping a gift? I have so many customers that if I offer to wrap for them, they're like, oh my God, you just saved my life. Three, you mentioned that he asks about you. So he knows a little bit about you. You know, he might not know your name, but he knows your face. He knows you have kids. And then four, he talks about himself so that he's a real person to you.
Yeah.
You know that he has grandkids. So those four talking points, that is something local or non-local that you can offer to your guests or your customers essentially, but especially locals, you can really hone in on that.
You can totally replicate those same things in your Scentsy business. And, you know, like I offer gift wrapping for people, you know, I just, you know, every time, you know, I try to get people to pick up, you know, for my locals, I try to tell people to pick up from my house if they can. I do have some local people that I ship orders to. They're very busy. And so they recognize that they're very busy, and they know that I'm very busy. And so they just know that like, if they want to get their stuff in a reasonable amount of time, they're just going to pay the shipping. But it's crazy the difference even in the relationship that I have with those people versus the people that actually come to my house and pick up, because they get to know me. And then it's a lot harder to leave someone that you know, like it's a lot easier to just grab some wax at Walmart when you're walking by the end cap if you don't feel, you know, if you don't have like a personal connection with someone. Whereas like I know that the majority of my customers, especially those that are like local to me, they would feel like they were cheating on me if they grabbed, you know.
Absolutely. That personal piece, I think, is everything. It's the personal piece of you asking about them, but also you sharing about yourself. You know, I think it goes kind of both ways. That really establishes that solid connection, that loyalty, that want, so that when they see someone say, hey, I need a Scentsy lady, they're like, oh, I've got a girl right there. Like that, I think is really the meat and potatoes behind that.
And so, you know, and so I like to mention those things just because like, I don't, you know, there are a few times like where I'll send out happy mail, like after a flash sale or things like that, you know, but happy mail as a whole is not really something I do. I don't really, aside from like my little ScentFix referral program, I don't necessarily have a referral program for just referring customers to me in general, you know. And I think that a lot of people, they get so plugged into these trainings and they're wanting to do all the things because I've been there before and I've had a to-do list a mile long about all the things I want to implement. But the reality is that Scentsy is really based on simple systems and simple products. And so you just, you know, don't go broke trying to make a business. You know, do the things that truly bring you joy. And if that's happy mail and that's delivering people's orders and all those things, that's great. But if those kind of things don't bring you joy, you know, or like for me, it's just not something I have time for. And so I have to just really rely on being an authentic person that they can relate to, that keeps them coming back, you know, not because they're being incentivized with free stuff. Everyone likes free stuff, but they also like attention. And so if you can just give people attention, that's just something that just doesn't exist these days. And so many products are just shipped right to people's doors, and I'm guilty of that. I mean, my dog food, I have so many
Oh,
things on
yeah.
auto ship that I don't even have to deal with people, that like to go into like our favorite locally owned little diner, like we know all those waitresses there,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's just, and they know us, a lot of times we sit down and they have our drink order on the table before they even ask us, because they know we're going to order the same drink every single time. Which is a Big Red. And for those of you who don't know, Big Red's not a gum. Whenever I first met,
I remember thinking about, like, I was like, oh, that's
yeah,
disgusting. But
no, it's a drink. It's a drink.
the drink in Texas, apparently. So let's talk about that. So for those of you that, maybe you don't have a large local customer base, that's probably why you're watching this training. What are some things that you can start doing? And I think just going into do. So a lot of ourselves, especially post-COVID, we are removed. The personal connection is removed and replaced with convenience. But if you do things, so like I did this on Valentine's Day, where I put together cute little bags with a catalog, a flyer, a scent circle, and just some chocolates. Like nothing crazy, but who doesn't love something free for their car, and who doesn't love chocolate? And I went in and I was like, okay, I need to get cash to go, because I bought shirts from a local lady. I wanted to support her, so I needed team shirts. So I bought shirts from her, but I wanted to pay her cash. She's like, oh, I accept these. I'm like, I know that everybody prefers cash because obvious reasons. So I was like, okay, I need to get cash. I can either go through the ATM and not talk to a single human, or I can just take an extra 5 minutes and go inside. So those small little adjustments that you can make to reintroduce human connection into your life is, I think, a great way to expand that local customer base. So, you could go through the ATM to grab that $20, or you can just take that extra 5 minutes to go inside, say hello, make sure the bankers know your name, go to the same branch, or gift them a little something the same way that you gifted like the principals and like the office ladies, like little things like that, go into the same grocery store or physically go in to do something, talk about your business, really just like build these connections. I think is a great way for these people that want to, expand their local customer base. There's lots of ways to do it, but the thing that I want everyone watching this to know is that it takes time. It is not something that happens overnight. It is not something that happens just one time. You can't do it once and find crazy results. Caitlyn's been doing this for a long time. Even if you're new to your area or you don't know a ton of people, that doesn't mean that you can't get there, and it does take time. So let's go ahead and talk. We've covered a lot of things already. What are some things you do on a local level with your local customers that are super beneficial, or maybe like things that are harder to do on a non-local scale?
Ooh, so obviously the obvious one there is placing like bulk orders, where people can save on shipping. I don't really make shipping like a thing, like I don't make it like a big thing about this is how much shipping costs. I just give them the price one way or another. If you want to pick it up from my house, here's this price. If you want it shipped to your door, here's this price. But obviously a lot of people like just picking up their orders. And, so obviously like whenever it comes in, you can bag it up, package it up, super cute. And I don't go all out on my packaging. I just use clear bags. I tie them up with cute ribbons, name tags, it's nothing crazy elaborate, but it's a little bit of a personal touch. We mentioned gift bundles earlier. So like, not only do I offer free gift wrapping for birthday gifts, whatever, but I also have really the last few years, honestly, since about 2019, I really started pushing like teacher gifts. And I remember that very first year I advertised hand soaps with a little tag that said like, hands down, you're the best around. I think I sold about 30 that year. And I was like, oh, this is big. I mean, 30 hand soaps at the time, they were only $6. It wasn't even a $200 order, but I thought that was big,
So tell me, so I'm not a mom, for any of you that don't know. Why do you think that sells? Like what would make someone purchase that from you?
It's the convenience factor. It is the convenience factor. In fact, like whenever you're talking about like teacher gifts and things like that, don't overcomplicate it. Just pick the items that you want to offer, wrap up one as an example, and show people those pictures and just go with it. I don't let my customers like hand pick their scents or any of that, because it's a gift. Like, and they all smell good. So it doesn't matter. I'm doing the hard work for you. Like, you don't get to pick all the nitty gritty of it, right? Like we're simplifying this, people. So, I do those gift bundles. So like this last Christmas, I mean, I did over 500 teacher slash coworker gift bundles, and every single one of those I stick a business card in, and you could do that on a non-local level. I do have some customers that don't live local to me that order those gift bundles. Again, they were local at one point and now they've just moved, and they're like, well, I have no idea where I'm going to get gifts from. Like they act like that
Sure.
there's nowhere for them to get gifts from. So a lot of times I'll send like the product and all the stuff that they need. So like I'll package up like the shred, the ribbon, the gift tag, and all of that to where like I can ship it to them and it won't get broken in transit or
And
messed
then
up.
they'll assemble it.
It there, it's 100% the convenience factor there. Fundraisers are another thing. Like I really like local fundraisers, like where they're collecting orders and then they turn the orders into me. Like of course you could do fundraisers where they're just doing it strictly online, and that's super easy, but again, you just don't really build the personal connection.
Right.
Anytime I have like a PWS order, if you're paid at lead or above, you're on the consultant finder. So I would say probably at least once a month, I have a Scentsy.com order come into my website. And again, like I don't generally send happy mail for those unless it's just a crazy big order, but I do personally reach out and text every person. This is Caitlyn. Thank you so much. I know you got the email with your order. Scentsy will send you the tracking number as soon as it ships. I just wanted to let you know I'm local to you. So next time you need something, please save my number. I always tell people save my number as the Scentsy lady, not by my name, because they will remember Scentsy, but they probably won't remember Caitlyn, and they definitely won't remember how my name is spelled. So I just tell them save my number as the Scentsy girl. You will remember that. Message me next time you need something. I'd be happy to help you out.
And
just
that's offering a service.
Yeah.
You're offering them the service of next time you need something, text me, or you can pick up from my house. I'm offering you, this is why.
And I'll mention to people, like, if you ever need anything last minute, let me know. Cause obviously whenever I'm placing all these local orders, I also get host rewards, and I can only stuff my own house so much, so I have some products that I've gotten with host rewards over time, so I can always tell them, if you ever need a gift last minute, you let me know. I have some things I can always gift wrap it up for you and things like that.
That's huge. That's huge. So speaking of really quick, we're gonna go off topic just for a second. Delivery versus pickup. This was a huge thing for me. I used to deliver all my products to my customers back when I lived in my hometown, because I had a huge customer base in my hometown and like the few surrounding cities. Now I live like 20 to 30 minutes away from there, and I could not keep delivering these products to people. So then I eventually transitioned into picking up, forcing them to pick up and not even offering delivery. Can you just talk to us? Because I know a lot of consultants struggle with that, like cutting out the delivery. Talk about like why do you do pickup only?
I used to deliver a lot, and I think that times have changed too in general. Online selling and porch picking up stuff is really prominent in our area, even from people who work boutiques from home or whatever they're doing from home. Porch pickup is a thing, at least in my area. But even before that, I just if you really want to grow a big local business, it just looked different. Like yesterday I was having a talk with someone, and she does like 99.9% of her customers are not local. So she does do a lot of like happy mail and mailing physical catalogs and things like that. Whereas like I don't, a lot of my people, I might spend the majority of my day messaging people, getting their card information, submitting their orders physically on the computer, and then packaging those orders up whenever they get here. It just looks really different whenever you have a local business. But so I just slowly like started telling people, hey, whenever I had my second daughter, I actually cut it down. I did one delivery day a week. So it kind of started with me saying like, hey, like I can, if you'd like to come pick up from my house, you can porch pick up at any point. I worked full time still at that point, so I wasn't there a lot. You can porch pick up at any point, or my delivery day is next Monday if you're not in a hurry. And a lot of times people would be like, oh, I'll be out and about tomorrow, and even if it was Tuesday, I might say like, well, my delivery day is not till Monday, so you're gonna have to wait a whole week. So that was kind of how it started, was that transition. I didn't personally do this, but I've had some consultants on my team that have been successful in offering just a free scent circle if you come pick up. Like there's like a little basket. She gets scent circles with host rewards, and she'll do, grab your order and grab a scent circle. But it was just kind of one of those things. And now, whenever I have a new customer, they don't even know that I used to deliver, right. So it's just very high of like, my office is out of my house. You can pick it up here at my house. You know, here's my hours where I'll be there. If it doesn't work during these hours, I can set it out. I have a shelf where I keep customer orders. You know, you can pick it up from my shelf. So anytime that's convenient, or I can ship it straight to your front door for $10. And that's as simple as it is. I don't go into, you know, like I said, I don't really make shipping a thing.
A big deal. So, I mean, it's really just, you have to transition your old customers. You have to retrain them to say, hey, I'm no longer offering deliveries. You don't need to explain why. You could just say, I'm no longer offering them. Your options are to pick up from my house, or you can ship directly to your house for this fee. And that's the thing is, as you get those new customers, you just have to tell them, these are your two options.
And a lot of mine started honestly with like, whenever I started growing, like I'd message them and be like, hey, if there's any way you could pick up, that would help me. I have over 50 orders. So I'm doing one delivery day this week. I'm not even 100% sure I can get to you that day, you know, and they're, oh my gosh, no big deal. I'm so happy you're so busy. You know, that's the difference in finding those customers that really support you. They're not getting beat up over having to pick up versus pay shipping. You know, those are not people that are getting all bent out of shape about that kind of stuff, are not the kind of people that are going to be like the cheerleaders in your corner forever.
Absolutely. All right. So let's talk porch pop-ups. Tell me about them. What are they? How did you get into them?
Okay.
So it started with, you know, doing porch pickups, right?
Yeah. So it actually, I kind of had like a couple like, woo, like freak out moments in 2020, right? 'Cause 2019, I started taking my business a lot more seriously. 2020, the world goes to heck in a handbasket. My fiance and I, just because of our jobs, we still went to work every day. We never like got to work from home or anything. So life for us really didn't change. And, you know, I would remember at work, we would sit there in the boss's office and we'd watch press releases and news conferences, trying to figure out when we're going to get to open back up and all those things. And I remember my boss at the time, he said, I don't know if people will ever shake hands again. And I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah, like that is the thing that hit you.
Yeah, that it was like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? Like, I've got to figure this out. Like, this wasn't just like a quick, we're gonna like, everyone's gonna get over this over spring break and everything's gonna, you know, that was what people first thought, at least in our area, spring break was happening, you know, so it was like kids left for spring break and then they just literally never went back to school. And so, you know, I think people thought it was going to be a quick thing. Even in my mind, I was like, this is going to breeze right over, you know, but it was, the times have changed, you know, so I had to figure out how to make that work. So at the time, you know, I was still doing lots of scent fixes. So it started with my scent fix customers, you know, so by that point, we're now in 2020. I've been doing this for more than a year. I've been doing this consistently for more than a year. At this point, I probably had like 60 to 80-ish customers. I'd have to look exactly, but just broad numbers.
I was just about to ask, give me numbers. Like 60
to 80-ish of those. And so I worked full time, you know, so I was only home, I was only available just a few hours in the evening. So what I would do is I'd give people my schedule. Okay, so boxes are ready. You know, I will be here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday from 6 to 8 p.m. If you want to pick up from me, if those hours don't work for you, just let me know. I'll stick it on my porch. And so it started with, I was like, okay, how can I like get these people to buy more? Because like, we're not doing parties, we're not doing all these things. And so I had a handful of things, a handful of products on hand that I'd gotten with host rewards over time. And so I started with just like this little pop-up shelf that I put on my porch. It didn't have any wax. So it had things like soaps, cleaners, cotton cleanups, light bulbs, things like that, that people would, you know, often come pick up their order and then be like, hey, do you have a pack of light bulbs? Hey, do you have a pack of cotton cleanups?
Sure.
And I just wasn't seeing people. And some people were, you know, not wanting to be around me anyway. So I was like, how can I meet them where they're at? Right. So where they were at was on my porch. And so I put out this shelf and I messaged them. I was like, hey, you know, this is a personal special. You can't advertise this on social media. So I'd message them and say, hey, whenever you come pick up your box, shop the porch pop up. And so, you know, it's just one of the things. I know that won't work for everyone, but, you know, for my area, I lived in a decently safe neighborhood. I had cameras, and the reality was it was all stuff I'd gotten with host rewards. So I was like, you know, at first my fiance, I remember he was like, what if it all gets stolen? I was like, well, then I guess it all gets stolen. I'm not out any money either way. I have the opportunity to maybe make some money, or maybe it all gets stolen. I don't know. Luckily, I never had any issues, but people loved that, right? Like they'd come pick up their stuff and grab their bulbs, or they'd grab a bag of soap, and I would just tell them to text me whatever they were, you know, whatever they picked out. And so that was kind of like my introduction into like, you know, letting those locals know that like, hey, it's a perk that sometimes I have some things on hand that you can always get from me.
Right. And that's a convenient factor. That's the same convenience that people like with a teacher gift. You know, with a teacher gift, they don't have to figure out what to buy. They don't have to package it up. It's already ready to go. But with your porch pickup, it's the convenience of, I don't have to wait for it to get delivered to your house before I can pick it up.
Absolutely. So that, so I did that for several months while I worked full time. And it was kind of funny because, I have my camera. So I'd see the alert pop up and like I'd see people on my porch, like shopping through my little shelf. So that was really fun. Another thing I remember during that fall. So, normally transition month would have been in August. So, we were getting ready for fall catalog in September. So, August of 2020, world is still not really fully back to normal. And so I really wanted to have an open house because I was trying to figure out like how to make some more sales in this weird period of time. And I was still working full time. And, it was really crazy for me. I know some people like got to really dive into their business because they were working from home and they had all kinds of extra free time. And I did not have all the extra time. So like a lot of people really grew doing like online parties and things like that. And that just wasn't in the cards for me time wise, to be doing. So I was trying to figure out how to still meet people locally, right? But it's weird because of germs. So I just remember that fall, I was like, man, how am I going to do an open house? I don't know that like 30 plus people are going to want to all be together in my house at one time. So I literally, at the time, I had a house with like not a circle driveway, but like one where you could pull side and pull out the other, right? So it was a drive-through driveway, right? So one month I literally did the Scentsy drive-through. So I messaged all of the Fix people and I was like, hey, it would mean so much to me if you could wait and pick up your order on this Tuesday between 5 to 7. I'm going to be doing the Scentsy driveway party. So you're going to drive through my driveway. And I drug out tables and shelves and I set up new warmers and I had catalogs and testers and I bribed a couple customers to come help me. And so I had one down at one end of the driveway. She was passing out clipboards so you could enter my door prize drawing, my driveway door prize drawing, whatever you call that. And she'd give them we had like little mini water bottles and snacks. And so they'd sit there in their car and wait and then they'd drive through. And so I'd get their orders and I'd hand them, if they had an order to pick up. But then I had the whole shelf there with products that they could see. And I mean, people thought that was the best. I should really implement that again, honestly, at some point, because people were like, this is so fun, and
it's just fun. It's different. It's fun. It's like and people love that kind of stuff. Like they want an experience. Yes. And that I think is an experience. And I think like open houses. So you don't really do open houses, do you? Not as much.
I have not lately. I actually am hoping to do like a bingo party. That's something you can like search for training wise. I'm wanting to do a bingo party for locals this next month. But I haven't done that yet. One thing that I do locally is I do like a Christmas open house. It all started one year. I reached out to my existing customers that I knew also had local businesses. There was a girl that made hair bows and one that did like woodwork and one that had a boutique and one that sold books and one that made like homemade jams and jellies and stuff. And I was like, hey, like, let's all set up at one house and then we all invite our own customers and we share that. So that's again, something consistently that I've had to do every single year to grow to be what it is. But I just literally opened up my house. I put one person in each room. And so that's something that I've grown every year. We do it on a Monday night, the first Monday of every December. And that is my Christmas open house.
It's like a little like home vendor show almost.
Vendor show, but like this last year I had 13 vendors here at the house.
I remember you texting me like while it was happening. I was like, Caitlyn, where are your sales at? Like,
so we just did it from 5 to 8 p.m. And this year we had over 250 people come through our front door. It was insane. Like, so at 5 p.m. I just remember like we opened the front door and there was like a line down my sidewalk, but I've done this now for 7 years. This is actually
it takes time to build that up. And it's
years ago, I didn't have a line at all. I don't even know if anyone was there whenever it very first started, but every build that consistency and you make it a thing, you make it, sometimes you have to fake it till you make it, right? Like, that's the thing.
For sure. And so I am someone who does open houses. I try to do them quarterly. I have to admit, I'm not crazy consistent with them, but I do have like a solid local customer base who, like, if they're free that day, they will always come to my open house. Like, it's a big thing. And I'll have it like, I just open up my house and I have like a sample bar for them to grab things from. I pull out my stock, they shop through that. And then, so I do it quarterly. So in theory, I always do one before a catalog change or like right at a catalog change. So they can smell all the testers, they can grab a new catalog, they can see that warmer in person. So those are things that you can do. And then one thing I do after my open houses is for anyone that cannot attend, I always put all of my stock into like a Yumi Who. So that way the locals that couldn't attend can still kind of shop. They can shop online and they can pick up another day. So you're still kind of giving them that kind of experience and those kind of local perks. But I really think you just have to give them a reason to want to be a customer of yours locally.
Yeah.
Those perks.
Yeah, and events, you know, if you can get into local events, whenever I was a newer consultant, I did do like some smaller events. Now, events outside of my home, I really I do one, but it happens twice a year. Like they do one thing in the spring and one thing in the fall. So I attend both of their events as a vendor. And that is a good continuous way for me to gain some new local people. Honestly, I mean, I really think that events are a great way to meet local people. It's just not something that I always can do scheduling wise. Cause like I said, I'm solo mom mode multiple days a week. And so having to figure out who's going to be picking up the kids, and I have very little family support in that area. So a lot of times events like that are just out of reach for me. But if it's something you can get into, I think that, you know, local events are a great thing. And like I said, if you can't find one, then, you know, create something with, you know, like an open house type thing with some other local vendors, and everyone can, you know, refer each other. So
I love that. I love that. So, friend, I actually don't have any other questions for you. So if there's anything else that you want to share, things, tips, tricks, what's worked, maybe what hasn't, share those. And then I want to close by telling everyone kind of numbers that you do now. So,
oh gosh, I really think we've kind of covered everything. I always like space out like, oh, like I'm sure I'm missing things. My biggest thing is just consistency. You just have to be consistent. And you can't be this wishy-washy, like where you're only consistent during incentive trip periods or you're all in. You have to be consistent all the time, and you have to always be willing to, you know, take an order, put an order in. You know, you don't have to carry a lot of things on hand to be successful with locals. I do think that you should always carry light bulbs and cotton cleanup on hand. I think that that is something that if you were going to invest, you know, with your host rewards on a few things, that would be it. But you don't have to do, you know, all those big things, you know, and so just do what feels right for you. And another thing too is just with social media being a big tool the way that it is just make sure, you know, you can be authentic in social media, but there's also a standard to the way that you should carry yourself in general if you're running a business. You know, if you're super toxic and negative on your social media and blasting, you know, your dirty laundry out there for everyone to see, there's a difference in being transparent and being negative. And so you might need to really do some soul searching if you are a naturally negative person, because like there's times like where I'll see people on social media who own certain businesses or whatever, and I'm like,
I already know.
Your business is great, but I just don't know that I want to deal with you to get to it. You know, that was actually literally the whole reason I joined, was because the person who I knew who sold it was like this negative Nancy, pot stirring drama queen of the family. And I was like, don't want anything to do with you. And so that was literally the whole reason I joined, you know? And so I just think, you know, watching the way that you carry yourself, but still being authentic and true to who you are. But just like I said, that consistency, that the payoff is in the consistency. I cannot reiterate that strongly enough. You know, people are always like, well, you know, you've been doing it, you know, whatever they want to say. You're so lucky, you got in at a great time, all of those things. You're an overnight success. Like
Irrelevant.
That was the longest night of my life. Then.
Right.
And
Truth.
Come talk to me. You do all these things that I'm doing, do them really well for like 4 years, and then come talk to me, and then we'll have another discussion. You know, it's just so hard because you want to compare where you're at right now. You know, you can't compare your day 1 to someone else's day 100. You know, wherever that is on the scale, you know, so just don't compare yourself. And just know that like, if you really want to change your business at any point, you can be a superstar, a director, demoted to superstar consultant for 8+ years or whatever. And then one day the light bulb can turn on and you can truly turn your business around, you know.
Yes. You make that choice, and you make that choice every day.
Yeah,
and it's,
absolutely.
and I mean, I did the same thing. I revamped in 2019 as someone who was a dropped down director. I was a superstar consultant, and I was selling 500 to 800 a month, maybe 1,000 here and there. That's exactly
for a lot. So
right. That's exactly where I was at. And I almost consider that my rejoin date. Like whatever happened before that is totally irrelevant. And if you are revamping today, anything before this, forget about it. Today's your rejoin date. And I like to think of it as like like 4 years in college. So 2019 was my the very, very, very end. Like December 2019 was my deciding factor of, like, it was literally the week of Christmas was my deciding factor to change. So that means 4 years from now, which will be this upcoming December, will be my 4 years of college, my 4 years of investments into this business. And it does take time. And where my business was at that point to where it's at now is crazy huge. And it's all about that consistency. And again, like you said, how you hold yourself, what you attract is what you think impresses other people.
Yeah.
So if whatever you think impresses people, if you think that is, you know, that's a whole nother topic that we could go down, but you attract like attracts like. If you are someone who's constantly complaining, someone who is I'm sorry to throw this out there, but politics, if you are constantly talking politics, that's exhausting. And if you're constantly talking about the news, that's exhausting. People don't want that. People want, Scentsy is something that feels good. It boosts your mood. People want connection. They want you to ask about their day. They want you to share the good things that are happening in your life. Of course, like you said, fine line, you can share authenticity and that you're struggling, but don't stay there. So yeah. Think about the people that you follow. What do you like to see? And then try to reflect that back on yourself. And let's bring it home, Caitlyn. Tell me, so we know where you were. We know kind of what's happened along the way and what you've done. Tell us about your business now. Tell us like customer base, team size, sales, maybe even if you want to share that big old commission check.
Okay, so I'll just share last month. Let's see. Let me pull it up.
Insert income disclosure statement.
Results may not be typical, but neither are you.
Hey.
So let me pull this up. So now my team is right at 130. We've actually been very consistently at that number for a while. So I'm not like a big heavy hitter on recruiting. That's an area that I could immensely grow in. But I will say that almost all my recruits are previously customers. You know, that's where all my recruits come from at this time. I don't have another avenue that I personally use to attract recruits. So it's all stemming from people who've used the products, love the products, fallen in love with the products. So I'll just go my biggest month ever. My biggest month ever was actually last January. So January 2023. My personal sales were 26,862.
Wait. Guys, her personal sales, that PRV, you heard that several digits, 26,000. So she went from 500 to 1,000 PRV just 4 years ago to 26,000.
4 years to the date. My PRV was $1,030.
So 1,030 to 26,000 plus.
So 26,000. So that was my biggest month ever, but not that far off from being my biggest month ever. I would say I average at least like 15-ish to 18-ish. Good months are going to be 22.
Wait, we're averaging 15,000 to 18,000 PRV a month. Like we're talking like earns annual sales in 2 months, or like earns an incentive trip in like 2 to 3 months as the top level. Like, whoa, dude.
So that was my biggest month ever. So last year, I keep saying last year, this was just a month ago. So my January commission check was right over $11,000. So that was a big thing for me. But you know, I would say, let's see, almost 9,000 of that though was my PRV sales, you know, so you don't have to have a gigantic team to make substantial income with it. You know, I would love to have a gigantic team one day as well, but those, you know, those sales and all those relationships that I'm fostering, you know, I always tell people like all of my best friends are in Scentsy, whether that's a consultant that I've met or a customer that I've met. I mean, I can't even tell you like the last time we like went on a trip or like went and saw friends that like weren't connected somehow through Scentsy. Like all of my people I know through Scentsy. Like it's blessed me beyond anything I could have ever imagined.
I just want everyone here to listening to this to think about this. What would $10,000 in 1 month do for your life? Like think about this. It's going to take time to build up. And of course, results are not guaranteed. But if you started today and you put in that consistency and you got uncomfortable and you put these tasks into place, and then you were someone who was making over $10,000 in 1 month. I know people who are $10,000 in debt. I know people who $10,000 would change their life tomorrow. And that's possible with Scentsy.
Right? But it can happen, I mean, I did that in 4 years. So like I gave the 4-year example. January of 2019, that commission check was $624. So that was the year that was the year, and that's a lot of money. I was making pretty good money because, like I said, it was a good side hobby for me. It was something that I took it seriously, but it wasn't like a priority. It wasn't truly, if we're being honest, it was not the priority.
Right.
It's not, and it still doesn't have to be the only priority in your life. It just has to be a priority, and you have to be consistent with it, even on the days that you love it. And on the days that you hate it, because it's not always, business ownership is not always like this. It is all over, and you're going to have highs and lows and frustrations and moments like where you're on top of the world. And it's just, you have to be consistent with it if it's what you really want.
Dude, thank you. Like, thank you. Thank you for sharing your heart and your soul and all of the things and being super transparent, because this training is going to change lives. I hope you realize that. Like, you've changed dozens of lives already with Scentsy. This here is going to touch like at least triple that. Like, I'm like emotional thinking about how much this is going to change everything. So, I love you.
I love you.
You're amazing. Guys, let me just throw out there, do not go on Facebook at Caitlyn though, because she's not. Go ahead, follow her, like watch her, like watch trainings, watch her, but don't add her on Facebook because the girl doesn't like it. And I'm just gonna say,
like, if you see me at an event, come up and find me and hug me, and I'd love to meet you face to face. But I'm kind of like stranger danger, so
yeah. So I just figured I'd put that PSA out. But seriously, guys, thank you for watching. Things like this are possible. That's why we share them. And it's up to you to make it happen. I believe in you. I love you guys. Go out there and kill it.
Bye.
Bye.